Happy Monday. Welcome back to Inside the Lines. Full week of plenty to talk about. We're going to have some Monday night football tonight, a little bit of college football. You're busting off the rust for Jake here tonight, some NBA, and of course, all of your questions. Feel free to ask all of them. We're ready to answer them. Let's head into Monday night football because we do have a lot to go over. I'll bring in Jake and Steven. Guys, how did Friday go without me? We get through it?
Terribly.
We shut Steven up.
Yeah, I know. I'm making it up for today. I expect to fill at least 92% of today's total conversation.
All right, good stuff there. Let's head into this game. Kind of tricky because we're not 100% on the quarterback situation. The model does like the Seahawks to cover here, but Steven, based off the quarterback situation, do we still feel confident in this right now?
Yeah, I mean, with Drew Lock versus San Francisco, Seattle only lost by 12. Whereas Philly lost by 23. So, transitive property says you did better against San Francisco than Philly did. Seattle's playing for its playoff lives. Without this win, their chances basically go down to, I think, under 10%. Philadelphia knows that since Dallas laid an egg and is in trouble, they're really not a threat to get the NFC East, and they're not going to catch San Francisco. So Philly, while they want to erase their struggles the last few weeks, it's more about getting healthy. And Darius Slay is out as well. So, Seattle has multiple weapons, and Philly's secondary is allowing maybe 80 more passing yards per game than last season's, and they're not rushing the passer. So I think that Seattle's got a good spot here, especially with a 3.5, not so much a 3.
Yeah. So speaking of letting some of these quarterbacks rest a little bit, let's talk about our first player prop here. We're going to Kenneth Gainwell. Now, we've dabbled with him a lot through this season, but this definitely seems like a good game for him considering Swift production hasn't been that successful. He could see some snaps with trying to keep Jalen Hurts healthy.
Yeah, I like the fact that, the books are showing a 15-20% disparity, in lines. It shows that a lot of books actually like him to have more than 12.5, but, you can still get a decent -120 price. Model has it at 21 yards. So he's been up and down, right? And I usually like following these patterns, but he had 22, then 1, 26, then 5, and he had 28 last game. But I think he'll have another, I don't think he'll have an explosive game, but with DeAndre Swift barely averaging 3 yards per carry the last 2 weeks, usually when things are going poorly, you sort of try to change things up. Maybe in this case, they dust off, Penny, who they got from Seattle, who I thought would have a huge year, as he returns to Seattle. Hopefully not, and hopefully it's more Gainwell.
Maybe Penny comes in for playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Seattle is allowing the 10th most rushing yards and yards per carry, so they're not a great run defense.
Mm-hmm. Nick S. asking about Noah Fant, longest reception over 12.5. Jake, do you have any opinions on that?
I mean, I feel like if he does get a catch, it's one of those 25-yard catches, so I don't mind that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know we have him projected for around 24 yards on 2. So that's an average of 12 yards per catch is what we're projecting. So over 12.5 sounds like a good bet. He's not going to get 12 and 12, right?
Yeah.
What are the chances? What are the odds? I should he's not. No chance to get 12 and 12.
All right, let's move over to our second Kenneth play of the night. Kenny Walker over 59.5 rush and receiving yards. We have a lot of value on him in general. Seems like we have the over for his rushing, which checks out, for his rushing prop and his receiving prop.
Yeah, that's why I like both these combined because he returned last week to the lineup, and he ran like 8 times for I want to say 20-something yards, but he had 33 yards receiving. If it is Geno Smith playing, then he'll obviously try to protect himself and protect his shoulder. So hopefully he'll just dump it off short passes rather than risk getting hit. At the same time, he seemed to have good chemistry last week. He had some nice explosive runs after the catch. So with a projection of over both his rushing prop line and his receiving prop line, I like to go with combine the two. He came, the Eagles defense, again, allowing 80 more passing yards than last year, and their sack production is down 25% and even more recently.
Mm-hmm. I don't see too many questions in the chat right now, but I have some questions myself. Looking at Devontae Smith again, I feel like his line continues to be a little bit undervalued. What do we have him projected for?
Yeah, and Jake likes this.
His line, you could get some places 54.5 right now, and some place it was 54.5 on DraftKings and 60.5 on FanDuel earlier today. I don't know what it's at now, but it was dropping earlier. But I think Nick, like Jalen Hurts, you probably wouldn't want to throw the ball instead of run it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think that would help him a little. I know we had him projected for 71 earlier in the week.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, you get a huge disparity. I mean, over 54.5 on the Hard Rock and under 60.5 on Fanatics. That's a big disparity. There's a lot of
that's
maybe
wild.
get both sides and see if he gets 58.
Yeah.
So it dropped from 60.5 to 57.5 on FanDuel, but 57.5 is still one of the higher ones out there.
What about Goddard? I feel like
I need him if I'm going to advance in fantasy after Isaiah Flowers laid an egg for me.
Over 40.5 on Goddard, and we have 46 projected, so pretty good value there. And they have those great corners.
I like betting on his receptions usually more than his yards.
We have We have right around 4 receptions projected, and let me see. His line is, come on, internet in the office. It's 4.5. It's pretty, but it's heavily juiced on the under, so we don't have any value at these prices. Yeah. But I think I'd be definitely enticed for a plus 140 on 5 or more.
Could be worse. All right, let's move on. Continue to ask your questions. Oh, here we go. We got some questions going on in the chat here. JSN. Let's see, the line's up. I guess you can find it at 37.5 yards and 40 yards. So let's go with 37.5 since we're more of an over team here.
We have 42, so not a ton of value, but certainly consensus if you like the over already.
Yeah. Over 3.5 catches looks pretty good too.
Yeah, I'm not. Again, I don't know how the Slay injury and him being out there, given how much they were already struggling at corner. Mm-hmm. I could see whatever they have might go after Metcalf and Lockett and leave JSN wide open.
All right, good to know there. Continue to ask your questions. We have a lot of NBA value to get through as well today, but before we do that, I want to go over with you, Steven, some of these Week 16 games. Now, for those of you who are new here, trying to get you the best value early in the week on some of these lines that we think are going to start to steam and you're going to lose value. So not all the most exciting games, but games you want to act on. We're going to start with Indianapolis headed to Atlanta. A lot of line movement we've seen from the look ahead till now. The Colts are now 2-point road favorites, but we think there could be some steam on the over here.
Yeah, I like no value on the spread, but the Carolina-Atlanta game was dismal conditions. And of course, Desmond Ridder threw another, red zone interception. You can't stop doing that. But the home games for Atlanta averaged 45 total points because it's in a dome, obviously. And it's more than 10 there versus their road average. The Colts games, they've either scored a lot or allowed a lot in 4 straight games, 27 or more. Usually on 3 of those 4 is a 30, either on their side or the opposing side. So I think that the model line is a 47, and this is a case where I think that other model-based services and stats-based services will start ticking this up. Again, 43.5 to 44. I think I saw 44.5 earlier today.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move over to Green Bay, headed to Carolina. Carolina's win over the Falcons, not really doing much line movement-wise, but there is some steam on the Packers here.
Yeah, and I think that obviously Green Bay's defense was torched. Baker Mayfield had a perfect passer rating, but Carolina just doesn't have the passing game to take advantage of the way that Baker and his weapons did. I think that so if you look at it, Carolina hasn't passed for 200 or more yards in 7 straight games. If Christian Watson plays, he makes a big difference in I think there's someone saying how Jordan Love's confidence just goes way up with Watson on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind, it's great production.
Let's head to now. We have a lot of discrepancy on this game. We have the Lions 3.5-point road favorites going to Minnesota.
Yeah.
The Sportsline Model makes Minnesota 1-point home favorites here.
Yeah, Minnesota. So Detroit, they do really well at home, and when they got protection for Goff, but they average a full touchdown less on the road. And the last 3 times where Goff's been sacked 3 or more times, they've lost by 15, 7, and 32. Minnesota's pass rush is warming up. They have 12 sacks in the last 3 games. And Minnesota was, I think, controlling to dominating 90% of that Bengals game. The 2, they should have had 2 field goals in the first half that extends it. And so I think that too much is made of Minnesota losing that game. And Detroit, Detroit hammered Denver, but I think there's different conditions on the road.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of going on the road, Washington going to the Jets. I never thought I'd say this, but act now on the New York Jets because you can still get them at 2.5 before that key number of 3. And we make them 5-point favorites here.
Yeah, it's amazing to see a team that had 4 yards in the first half against Miami actually have the steam go their direction. Washington, they were getting obliterated by the Rams. They had a couple of touchdowns late from Jacoby Brissett that will give it, it makes the game seem closer than it was. But the Rams also fumbled twice. Kyren Williams fumbled twice on what looked like to be short scoring drives. So that game really could have been 38-0 had it based on the game flow. Mm-hmm. So I think people think, okay, the Jets, they were humiliated. They do have a proud defense at least. And so they're going to, the fact that they got torched by Tua without Tyreek Hill there was really, I think so Saleh and that he's playing for his coaching life. And if he left the game with a head injury, but if Zach Wilson is healthy and is, again, back to the Zach Wilson with 0 expectations against Washington's defense, which is not only allows the most points in the league at over 30 a game, it's 3.3 worse than the second worst team. That's a big, that means they're much worse.
Yeah. The best part about getting shut out is the bar is in the basement. You can literally only get better from there, I hope. That
was my recipe for my dating life.
There you go. Great advice.
It worked out.
All right, let's move over to a team that almost got shut out. The Cowboys now traveling down to Miami. Miami 1.5-point favorites here. This could be great for me to see the Cowboys lose again for playoff sake, but we like Miami here. We don't have too much value on it, but you think that the steam is going to be on Miami?
Yeah, because we also how bad Dallas was in Buffalo. And then all the stats that have come out, the narratives that not only are they horrible on the road, horrible against winning teams, but it's also the turf. There's the offensively and defensively, they don't generate any kind of pass rush on grass. Mm-hmm. So I think Derek could look at some stats, but I think those narratives will start permeating in addition to just how bad they looked. And Miami was great. Miami has allowed, I heard this, 7 of their last opponents have scored under 20, and the one they allowed more than that was Kansas City at 21. The exception of the Tennessee game, which had a ridiculous, weird 14-point comeback in the fourth. Mm-hmm. So their defense has been spectacular.
Yeah. Let's move to, now I hope you can get through this without being too biased. I might need to bring in Jake for his opinion, but we have the Ravens going to the Niners. Big game for them. The model has the Niners as 6.5-point favorites, and you think there is steam headed that way on San Francisco?
The model is picked against Baltimore against the spread, I think, there's the entire win streak. And that may be a coincidence, or that may just me be, using whatever powers I have to manipulate the gambling gods and play both sides. So who knows? But yeah, with the model of San Francisco, but obviously where my heart is. I think you want to get San Francisco before it's down to, I think it's up to -5.5 in a lot of spots. I should check. And it's a tough spot for anybody going at San Francisco when they're healthy.
Is this game on Christmas?
Yes.
I feel so bad for your family. This is
going
to be you're going to be a nightmare.
I spent like $5,000 on gifts.
Yeah, just entertain them with gifts, and you can watch the show or watch the game by yourself, and no one will bother you. That's good parenting. Parenting 101. I love to see that. Yeah. The Eagles also are playing on Christmas, I believe, but a little bit less of a sweat, I'm hoping.
Yeah.
All right, let's give you a break here. We'll bring in Jake. We do have a lot of NBA picks we like today, but there is a college football game, a bowl game going on, and we do not want to neglect that. And no better person for this than Jake. We're going to Old Dominion here. We have Grant Wilson. You can find this on Underdog, probably Prize Picks too, but over 234.5 pass and rushing yards.
Yeah, who doesn't want to watch the famous Toastery Bowl tonight between Old Dominion and Western Kentucky? But Western Kentucky quarterback Austin Reed is out. I think he's declaring for the draft and just skipping out tonight. So it's honestly smart. I don't know why you want to prove anything against Old Dominion. But our one play is Old Dominion's quarterback Grant Wilson over 234.5 pass plus rush yards. We have him for 274. Old Dominion's offense has been but we're betting against West Kentucky's defense here. And West Kentucky's top cornerback is in the transfer portal, so that should help him as well. I don't love anything in the game just because there's so many opt-outs and transfer portals and everything. We have slight lean on the over, which I don't like. We have slight lean on Western Kentucky. The spread has moved from Old Dominion -3 this morning to -6.5. So all the money's coming in on Old Dominion, but I would just stay off. So we're 2 for 2 on props. Hopefully you get start off 3 for 3, which would be nice considering how big of a mess these bowl games are.
Yeah.
Jake's player props have been by far our most profitable type of bet. Profitable bet props. I don't know what he's going to do to make up for the end of the season.
All right. Before we get to our NBA props, let's answer a few NBA questions with the model, Stephen, if you can pull that up. We'll look at the Kings Wizards. Total set at 248.5, pretty high there. Do we have any value?
No, we have a 247. Again, the Wizards game last night was only a 220. They actually played some defense, but and Sacramento's been playing. Just shut down Utah, but no good value there.
Mm-hmm. Koulibaly for Washington. I think he's been the biggest bright spot for Washington all season. He's been surprisingly really, really good.
He was teammates with
Victor Wembanyama in France. But he's been surprisingly good, especially shooting the ball and defensive-wise. He's a long 6'8" guard.
Mm-hmm. Let's move to the Sixers hosting Chicago here. Poor Tyrese Maxey, man. He's kind of burned us a couple times.
I know, twice in a row he's burned us. But, I mean,
maybe we have to bet it again.
We like the value in him tonight. I mean, they've just been playing too many blowouts, and they're doing I think they're doing the wrong thing. This is a little side note with Joel Embiid. Embiid is awesome, and he's destroying people, and I can understand it, but they don't need to learn to play with Embiid healthy and fresh. They need to learn how to play with him not. So it's like, why don't you beat Detroit by 15 with Embiid playing 28 minutes rather than beat him by 40 with him playing, his full allotment? At least in the first, 35 minutes of the games. I think they're running too much through him for the sake of regular season success.
And I took that pick we were talking about with Embiid when they were playing the Pistons, under 52 points, rebounds, and assists, because I figured he'd play 25 minutes, and they played him over 30. It's
they're running too much through him.
Yeah,
just to win games by 20.
I mean, it's working. So
it's not going to work. It's not going to work in
Oh no, it's not going to work
in December,
April, May when his production goes down by 10 points because he's always hurt.
Right. Let's head over to some of our props here. I didn't realize how much time we're running out of. All right, let's move over to what you guys have. We will start with the Cavs. We like the Cavs spread against the Rockets tonight. We make this more of a 12-point game than a 3.5-point game.
Yeah, Cleveland is playing without their two of their three best players, but in their absence, Jared Allen had a monster game against Atlanta, and Karis LeVert and Max Strus can at least make up for the scoring and shooting of Darius Garland. So as long as Donovan Mitchell's there and those two are playing there, Houston's road splits are pretty noticeably bad outside of their big win at Denver, and they're just playing on a back-to-back as well. They just lost to Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm. Let's move over to a little player prop here. Kawhi Leonard under 28.5 points and under. We're kind of
I'm going to burn by half a point. So I'm going to go with the under because everyone likes to bet overs, and I know the sports books juice them, set the lines higher to take advantage of that. Kawhi's been lighting it up, but he hasn't been shooting a ton of attempts. He's just been hyper efficient. 12 for 6. His low recently is 9 for 16, and he's shooting. Just off the top of my head, it looks like he's shooting around 60% from 3-point range and perfect line. So I'm just hoping that this is a game where he shoots a more normal 8 for 16. And with Tyrese Halliburton, a game time decision, if he doesn't play, maybe it's a blowout. I also like the fact that the Clippers are playing very well and they're healthy. So maybe this is a game where you feed Harden and let him try to rack up a 40-point game, or Paul George, or even Russell Westbrook. Give these guys some love offensively. So the line of 28.5 is already adjusted up for the high total that expected to be played in Indiana.
Speaking of Paul George, Jake likes his over rebounds and assists set at 9.5. We have him projected for 10.6, which isn't that big of a difference. But Jake, I'm sure there's reasons that make you confident in that, right?
I mean, at 10 point, that's a full one rebound assist advantage, which with the line that small, I mean, it's pretty big. So the line I got was 9.5 on ESPN Bet at -125. It's now actually -150 on ESPN Bet. The line's pretty much all over the place, depending where you look. 9.5 at -190 on DK, -199 on Caesars. So you're still getting some good value on ESPN Bet at -150. But this is one of those revenge games for Paul George against Indiana. And I think with the pace of this game, I think he should go well over.
He shouldn't be mad at them. They should be mad at him anyway.
Yeah, but it's still, you want to play well when you go to your original team.
Right. Well, speaking of that, someone was asking about Himmy Butler and his revenge game against Memphis. I know we like the over here, Steven. Do we like Jimmy Butler with any of his props as well?
I
guess it's got to play.
I don't see any lines right now. So Miami's got everyone back except for now Kyle Lowry's
points line is 20.5, so we have slight value.
We have value. So we have value on the over in general. So we have a 230 projection because, Miami games, their average total at home is 10 points higher. 17 points higher. They're allowing 10 more points per game at home, but they're, and then, Minnesota's got an awesome defense, but it's mostly at home where they allow only 100 points a game. They allow 111 on the road. Anthony, it might be out. So the conditions are good for the over in this case. And that flows through to the individual players and their scoring.
Let's move over to Siakam. I know Jake has a play on him. We like his points over.
Yeah. I like his over 23.5 points here. I think it's a good matchup. I've said that Charlotte's really bad against power forwards because they don't really have anyone his size to guard against him. And we have at 24.2, Charlotte's allowing 26.3 points per game to power forwards. I just think this is a good matchup. He had 25 in his last matchup against them about a week or two ago. I think just favorable matchup.
And they got a lot of game time decisions and issues that we see in the chat. Miles Bridges, because of his legal issues, might not be available. PJ Washington's game time decision, Hayward's game time decision, Mark Williams even. So there's a lot of front court players who.
I didn't think about that. You probably can't travel to Toronto with those legal issues.
Yeah, so that's so we'll see. I think it's right, and then Toronto's still not good enough to just kill somebody.
That's fair. I see a lot of questions about Chet in the chat. OKC hosting Memphis here. Do we have any value on his blocks set at 2.5? I get so scared to bet on stuff like that.
He's been killing it lately. If you look at his game log, I think he had 6 his last game were
8.
Yeah.
He was awesome. I mean, SGA was awesome. That was an awesome ending. But Chet, we only have him projected for 2.2. Not sure why. Seems a little low, but we don't have value on Nova.
I played Chet over 26.5 points, rebounds, and assists at 27.5. We do have slight value on Jalen Williams here. I think could be a really good matchup for Jalen Williams.
I like Desmond Bane. He's pretty much been a one-man show recently. And he's had his last 2 of his games he played at 28 points. The last game he scored
40 minutes.
Yeah. So with a massive amount of usage and minutes, I like him.
There we go. Coming up with some props on the fly. I like it. All right, we have one more pick from the model I want to get out here. Detroit, team total under 117.5 versus Atlanta. We have them projected more for 109.
Yeah, they, in this ridiculously long losing streak, they've only gone over this number once, and that was again versus Indiana, the notoriously, fast-paced, subpar defense. The weakness of Atlanta is their defensive 3-point percentage, which is 41% allowed, but they're not horrible. I mean, they're pretty good on the road, 36%. So overall, and even going back to last season, they're actually pretty good in terms of defensive 3-point percentage. And Detroit just doesn't have anyone who can shoot except for Bogdanovich. So as long as, they have their, Atlanta's got some decent outside of Trae Young, they got good defenders on the perimeter. So if they just focus in on Bogdanovich's shooting, they should let Cade Cunningham, shoot as many threes as possible. He's maybe hit, over two, 1 for 8, 1 for 6. So he's not exactly lighting it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tough time to be a Pistons fan. Tough time. But you got to see it through. Can't be for everyone. All right. That is all we have time for today. We are running over, but lots of good information. One of those episodes you might want to watch back, take a look at the model. Feel free to ask us any of your questions on Twitter. Good luck with your Monday bets tonight, and we will see you guys tomorrow.